What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Pod of the Palace post-game show following Arkansas's 65-49 win over Troy. I'm Curtis Wilkerson. He's Andrew Ellis. We're here to talk about what was the classic case of a tale of two halves. What do you think, Andrew? I mean, the first half was, alarming in a lot of ways, and we'll talk about it. And there are definitely some things that we got to look at moving forward, especially with the health and the depth in the front court. But man, after just an ugly start to this game, pretty beautiful finish, man. Arkansas finally started knocking down some threes. Headband Z was electric, and Arkansas outscores Troy by 17 in the second half to pull away and cover in this game.
Yeah, from a very big picture, bird's eye view perspective, this game kind of went according to the general plan that I had in my brain of it being pretty ugly. I frankly didn't think Arkansas was going to cover for a really long time there. I can't believe they ended up covering the spread of which wound up at 13.5 over our friends at Bet Saracen. But Arkansas, you saw this game on the schedule and you saw it's going to be game 3 coming off 3 days after a big game against Baylor. You kind of saw this as an obvious letdown spot. Now, maybe Arkansas coming off the loss had a lot to prove in this game, but this seemed like a game that had the ingredients to be ugly, which we definitely saw in that first half. I did not expect to see Arkansas hit 10 threes. I certainly didn't expect Big Z to hit 6 by himself, which is encouraging. That was kind of the one thing we said on the show today. If you could see one thing from Arkansas tonight, what would it be? We wanted to see if this team, just to see if that 3-point shooting is in there somewhere. I definitely didn't see Big Z accounting for 60% of it by himself. But hey, you'll take it however you can get it. And what a time for Big Z to step up with Arkansas being down 2 big men tonight with Jonas Adu, who gave it a whirl out there. Clearly is still, I think they said 70-75%. That's the number we keep hearing. Still not ready to roll. Trevon Brazzil had some awesome minutes before he goes down and rolls his ankle. So this depth for Arkansas that's such a concern became even more highlighted when you're playing with a rotation of 7 guys, essentially. And Big Z, what a time to have your best game as a Razorback.
Yeah, my goodness, man. That was much needed, considering he was quite literally the last line of defense in the front court there in the second half. But man, he wound up playing really, really well and still did some, young guy stuff out there with some of those turnovers and some defensive lapses. But man, you can't complain too much when a 7'2" kid goes out there and hits 6 threes. But yeah, 19 points for Big Z in this game. Adu Thiero matching him. Thiero. I got to get it right. I'm working on it. 19 points for him as well. Boogie Flan joined them in double figures with a dozen. Some ups and downs in there. I thought Johnell Davis was better in the second half offensively after just getting some cardio in the first half. Still some guys that you want to see get worked in. Just, aside from the injuries, Carter Knox with an 0 for 5 there. You need to get him going a little bit. DJ Wagner held scoreless in this game, but he did have 5 assists, just 1 turnover. So ups and downs, you're going to kind of see that early in the season. But the good thing is they avoided disaster and wound up getting a win that makes you feel a little bit better than probably you thought you would at halftime. Defense was the catalyst for Arkansas. And, Andrew, they entered the game ranked number 12 in the country in adjusted defensive efficiency, according to KenPom. And it's probably going to go up after this. I mean, you hold Troy to 49 points, under 40% from 3, 15.8 or under 40% from the field, 15.8% from 3. And then, good Lord, I mean, you turn them over 24 times in this game. You get 16 steals, 11 block shots. That's the kind of stuff that can help you overcome a sluggish start like that offensively. They hung their hat on it early. That's what kept them in the game. And then once the shots start falling, that's how you're able to pull away from a team.
Well, look, we still don't know what this Arkansas team ceiling is going to be because there's so many moving pieces, so many guys you can go on down the list of the roster of guys that either need to get going or need to get to 100% or just need to be more comfortable in their role. And there's plenty of time for all that to happen. But Curtis, this defensive effort, now again, it's not going to always result in 49 points and your opponent going 3 of 19 from 3. But the way that they were smothering, harassing almost every dribble, almost every single pass in the backcourt, the effort that they played with defensively, which, by the way, those guys, we've been hard on their conditioning a lot throughout this offseason and kind of leading up to the season. And you saw some guys that were certainly tired down the stretch. But when you have a rotation, it was pretty much limited to 7 tonight. For those guys to still be playing as hard as they did throughout this game, I thought was really impressive. Makes me think they're taking strides in the right direction in that regard. But this defense definitely gives me a lot of hope that this team's floor remains very high. Because you look around the team, they're always going to have enough in the scoring department. Tonight, that enough could have been even 51 points, and it won't always be 65. Won't always be enough to win. But you look at Arkansas's offense, you feel like on a given night you're going to get quote unquote enough offensively, especially if this team is going to continue to defend like this. What did Troy end up with in the turnover? Does that say 24 turnovers?
24, man. Yeah.
I know they had more turnovers than made field goals in the first half, despite leading at halftime of this game.
And they did for the game.
It's pretty unreal, man. There's to talk about, and this is not going to be. I'm not trying to act like I'm blown away by this performance by the Arkansas Razorbacks, but there are certainly some things that I think this team can clearly hang its hat on. And I thought, given the circumstances of it being a little bit of a letdown spot 3 days after a road game and on the road against a good Baylor team, and with two of your top guys down in this game, I felt like Arkansas rose to the occasion in the areas that they needed to, specifically Big Z with the 3-point shooting and on the defensive end.
Yeah, that was danger zone stuff there early in the second half when, Arkansas was down. They hadn't been shooting well. It just looked, they looked very out of sorts. And then, like you add into, as soon as the broadcast comes back, they say, Arkansas fans, if you're looking for good news, I don't have any, because Jonas Adu and Big Z are both out for the rest of this game. And I'm sitting here going, oh, buddy, here we go, man. But yeah, defense really, really catalyzed things. Man, they got 7 turnovers out of that Rigsby kid for Troy. That's really impressive. And 6 out of another dude. My God. I'm just like live reacting to some of these things that I'm seeing in the box score. Only 7 of 14 on free throws. Who was missing the free throws? Boogie Flan, 4 of 8, bro. What?
He was 4 of 8. I know Thero missed a couple there. By the way, speaking of Boogie Flan, and we're talking about defense, I don't know if there's a guy who set the tone more at the top of that Arkansas defense than Boogie Flan. It felt like anytime that guy was trying to dribble, he was all in his shorts, just kind of putting his hand in there. I was surprised by how well he was able to do that without fouling too much. And as a point guard, I know he had the 4 turnovers. I was really pleased with this Boogie Flan performance overall. Not his best. He's going to have much better games, but overall, that's back-to-back games now with 7 assists, despite having 4 turnovers today. I really like his two-way impact for Arkansas, and just kind of the way he plays above his years. He seems to be a calming presence on both ends for Arkansas.
Yeah, no doubt. And it was kind of strange watching Boogie out there in the first half, because even early in the game, felt like he was really disruptive defensively. It was kind of interesting how I think it was Eric Musselman. I can't remember exactly what it was he used to say, but I think he was saying attack the dribble, just with your hands. And there's an art to that, to not get called for the reach. And Boogie was just doing this thing where he just kind of had his hand out there, and the ball was just hitting it. It was the weirdest thing. He just had it timed perfectly, and was really disruptive against that point guard. And it was good. And then it was a long time before he even took a shot in the first half, but he was definitely better in the second half. Hit a couple more threes. A lot of good stuff there from Boogie and really a lot of these guys. So very encouraged by the second half. Was certainly alarmed by the first, and I don't blame anyone who also felt that way. Where do I want to start? Trevon Brazzil. Okay, yeah, let's talk about this for a second. It's a good thing for Arkansas that they don't have a quote unquote quick turnaround, that they don't play this weekend. They have a few days to rest up here, and then they play Pacific. And you don't take anyone for granted. I understand that, but Pacific is on Monday night, and Pacific is bad. Okay, they are not good at basketball. They are 251st at KenPom right now ranking. Don't be surprised if you don't see Trevon Brazzil or Jonas Adu in that game. I'm just going to tell you that right now. And that's okay, because then you don't play again until Friday against Little Rock, where they're a little bit better. You might actually need them for that. So never a good time for guys to be injured, especially when you just already don't have a ton of depth on the roster. But like Boogie got a little bit banged up there at the end. Thero was kind of limping around a little. It's like all these guys got a little banged up. It's kind of a physical game in there, man. It was a little bit of a war, but if it were ever a time to do it, it would be when you have a few days before you play Pacific.
When also in this particular matchup, because you even called this going into the game, you were saying, hey, there might be some times where Thero is at the 5 in this matchup against Troy. It's one of the few teams on the schedule that you could probably get away with having a shorter front court rotation. So they timed it out pretty well. I haven't looked into Pacific to know what they got in terms of the front court and size. But I agree with that point. That, like, if you want to go through these weird little short rotation depth issues, which again, everyone's going to freak out and say, oh, Arkansas needs a 12-man rotation. They don't, but we'll just pretend like that's a real thing. Early in the year, this is a good time to go through all that. And frankly, Curtis, we mentioned some of those guys they got to get going, like a Carter Knox, like a DJ Wagner, who's played a lot in all these games. Billy Richmond, who had a couple moments here and there. Billy Richmond continues to be like just a little bit of a roller coaster that I actually enjoy watching. But honestly, I think it's a good time to get some of these guys more action. Just play Carter Knox for 28 minutes and see what happens.
Yes.
And Big Z clearly seemed to be flourishing. The more he was on the floor, the more confidence he gained, the more reps he got. I think this is honestly, it's a good thing for this Arkansas team. And it was good to see some of those guys who kind of had to step up in this game do so in such a dramatic fashion. And I got to be honest, I know that Johnell Davis didn't have another game that I'm sure people are going to be disappointed with. In that second half, he definitely looked better. I am not really that concerned. I feel like you can kind of almost see him putting it together. And I like that he's not forcing it at all. He's just kind of letting it, although he's probably letting it come to him too much. Because in the first half, I know you tweeted about it, it seemed like he didn't touch the ball for like 8 minutes there.
That's on Cal. I'm just going to be honest with you. That is 100% on Cal. Too many possessions that Johnell Davis does not touch the basketball and that he does not leave the left corner. And they always start everything to the other side towards DJ. And look, like you're 3 games into the year, so you're still trying to figure out what works, who needs to get their touches, where they need to get them, all those things. But you can't go 6 minutes to start a game without Johnell Davis really getting any touches in a position to get a shot up. You just can't do that. But to your point, it was better in the second half, and he's like all these guys right now. Like, he showed flashes, right? Like, he had that putback. That's kind of vintage. Johnell Davis. He knocked down the 3-pointer. That's how it looks when he's red hot and hitting those shots. And he had the go-ahead bucket where he was just going to the rim, little Euro step, and finished on the dude. And that's what you can see from him. You just want to start seeing it consistently. So, definitely encouraged by the second half there. He also competed on the glass in a game where, you never, ever, ever want to lose the rebounding battle by 7 and by 4 on the offensive glass to a mid-major. But given the circumstances, I mean, I'm really not that mad about it. They were -10 on the glass in the first half, and then they only had 1 forward available in the second half, and they actually wound up closing the gap. So that's a good thing. And the other thing that factors into that, and I just wrote it in a story, was they were -10 in the first half, but they were almost even on the offensive glass. They were just missing a shit ton of shots. So there were a lot of defensive rebounds to be grabbed for Troy there. You start making some shots, all of a sudden things balance out a little bit. But man, I'm just glad they figured it out. If I'm being honest with you, they finally got it to double digits there. They came out of a timeout. Thiero scores the layup, and then I think it was Boogie with the steal, and then Thiero again with the layup, and then somebody else got a steal, and then there was a 3-pointer. I think Boogie's the one that hit the 3. It was like that 7-0 run like that to put it up 10 after you just asked for a 7-0 run to me in a text message, and we're like, okay, we can breathe a little bit now. So.
I remember the moment I realized they were going to win the game. It's when Big Z hit his second 3, which I believe tied the score at 32-32. And then whenever I saw that it was tied, I kind of looked at the score, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe it's tied, how poorly Arkansas has played. That's sort of when it felt like, okay, they have taken the best punch they can, or the best punch that Troy could throw on this given night. Because Troy was all over the place offensively. Good Lord, man. They are not going to enjoy rewatching that offensive performance. Everything they did was sloppy. They couldn't buy a bucket either, which obviously Arkansas inflicted a good bit of that. But I felt like Big Z hitting that 3 was the turning point. That's when you started to see Boogie start to really get it going offensively. I believe Johnell Davis had a 3-pointer knocked in there. And it just seemed like everyone started to kind of exhale. And that's when you see Arkansas play at their best, when they're able to get things going. They got on transition and did pretty well in this game as well, even though there really weren't that many. It was such a chaotic game. I don't know if any team ever really got a rhythm, but Arkansas got as close as you could get to a rhythm once they started knocking down a few threes, which again, we felt like would be the case. We don't think this team has to be a great 3-point shooting team, but once you get a few to go through the net, it should open things up. And we saw that in the second half.
All we wanted to see was that they were capable of knocking down threes. They just have to prove that they can do it. And the entire point was, and I looked up the stats. I know I texted you earlier today before the game, but people got real caught up in not just Arkansas missing threes, but the volume of threes that they were taking, like 288 in the country and 3-point attempts per field goal attempt. And yeah, like the game is trending towards shooting more threes, and you go watch, Kentucky shoot 40 of them. And it's a fun brand of basketball to watch, and that's okay. But there's more than one ways to skin a cat. But if you go look, and I did this before the game, so it might have changed a little bit now, but 9 of the top 25 teams in the country in adjusted offensive efficiency rank 208th or lower in the country in the amount of threes they take per field goal attempted. So there are really good offenses out there in the country, about 40% of the top 25, that are not shooting a lot of threes. The difference is, for the most part, they're making more than 23% of them. And so, like, if you're not going to shoot that many of them, you have to make a decent percentage. Here's Arkansas tonight, 10 of 23. I don't expect them to do that every night. But like we said, if you're going to shoot 20, make 7 of them. Yeah. We're not asking for too much here. And then you can occasionally, and I'm pretty sure you said this yesterday at one point, occasionally pop off and hit 10, hit 12 in a game and just prove that you're capable of doing it. And that makes you feel good about it, because this roster was not constructed to be one that hoists up a bunch of threes. But we thought that despite that being the case, they would probably be a little bit more efficient than we've seen from some of the recent teams under Muss.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get 6 threes from Big Z very often. You're not going to get 6 threes from any player on this roster very often. But again, we still feel like there's so many variables. I mean, Carter Knox might be one of the best just overall shooters on this team. And what is he, like 1 for 7 so far to start his college career? Like, he's going to have some games where he's able to knock down a couple. DJ Wagner, I don't know if he's hit a 3 yet this season. You feel like he's going to be a guy that hits some threes. You just need a few more guys on this roster to go ahead and flash some of that capability. I don't know if Trevon Brazzil's knocked down a 3 yet as well. He's another guy who's going to have a couple. So it's like, you look on down the roster, Arkansas is going to have their nights where they make 10 or 12 threes. But yeah, it's that capability that can open things up. And in a game like this, a game as chaotic and ugly and back and forth as this one, it's not like it took that much to open things up offensively for Arkansas.
I'm disappointed, so disappointed for Trevon. And hopefully this isn't a long-term deal. I think it's a positive that he was, out there. Looked like he had his ankle taped or something, then maybe they decided he wasn't going to go, but he didn't come back out, to my knowledge, on like crutches or booted up or anything like that. That's probably a positive sign. We'll see. But I hate it for him, man, because I really thought he was playing his ass off. He was really impactful out there. He was being aggressive. He had only played 9 minutes. He had 5 rebounds already. He had a putback dunk and then another tip in. Like, he was on his way to a double-double type of game there, and taking advantage of the opportunity to get in there and start. So obviously for depth purposes, but just because he's been playing well, you hope you get him back sooner rather than later. I got to give Jonas Adu credit too, because that you could just tell that he was like an emergency minutes only type of situation tonight. And this was it. And so he was able to go in there, clearly probably didn't plan on participating. I'm not even sure how much he really warmed up in this game. Gave him 4 minutes to close the first half, and they were big ass minutes for Arkansas. And then he got to chill out there, but you got to get that dude healthy for sure, man. It was, it just, you like the way Arkansas responded in this game, but you almost feel frustrated because, damn it, if they were healthy, and you hate to use that as an excuse, but man, this would look so much different. I promise that some of these issues we've been seeing wouldn't be a thing if they were healthy right now. And yeah, you could say Cal should have gone out and gotten more players or whatever, injuries are part of the game. All that is true. I'm just saying, full strength, this team's got a bunch of ballers.
Yeah, I thought Trevon, I agree with your assessment. I thought he looked awesome. I mean, 2 steals, 2 blocks in 9 minutes of action. And his rebounding, I thought, was really effective. I thought a lot of different Razorbacks stepped up in the rebounding department. I saw a few people trying to give Big Z a hard time for his 2 rebounds, which, like, look, when you're 7'2", it's hard for me to argue. I feel like you probably should have more than 2 rebounds. But again, he blocked 5 shots. He was altering a lot of those, had 3 steals as well. So it wasn't one of those things where he was giving up offensive rebounds to Troy guys or anything like that. I thought Arkansas did a really good job of kind of rounding things out and guys stepping up. But yeah, I feel better about Trevon after tonight. I feel better about Big Z after tonight. And even Jonas Adu, just the fact that he went out there, it was actually crazy because clearly it was a coach's decision for 60 minutes. Like, they were not planning to play him. When they threw him in, I was kind of like, wait a minute, what? So he is healthy? Like, wait, I was a little confused by that. But to your point, yeah, it was clearly just a break glass in case of emergency situation there. Overall, like, there were a lot of positive developments. And we can also acknowledge that this team is clearly not where they need to be, not where they're going to be. But again, we kind of went into this game knowing that's what we were looking at. Nobody expected Arkansas to come out here and like be firing on all cylinders in game 3, which look, that may frustrate you. It may not. It just is what it is. Like, and I think also this is a good time of year for Arkansas to be going through some of these. You get 3 more games upcoming. You could argue, is this the hardest game in this 4-game stretch that Arkansas is going to have to play?
Probably. Little Rock could be tricky. I haven't really got to watch them yet. I know they got some high major guys on that team, but losing KK really hurt them. Yeah. So I don't know how much that's impacted them.
Tonight.
They played them last night and they lost.
Gotcha.
Like pretty handily, I think.
I figured they would because Arkansas State should be pretty good, but
they'll probably be about like Troy, honestly.
Which, again, clearly is a test that Arkansas should be able to handle pretty well. Mm-hmm. And so, look, I'm not saying even after this 3-game stretch, Arkansas is going to be ready to take on the might of the Final Four or anything like that. But I do think Arkansas is trending in the right direction, although it might take a little bit longer than folks thought. Now's a good time for that.
Exactly. All right, folks, we're going to get into your chats here. I know we got a lot. I got to start with this one. It was about halfway down, but okay. Take DJ out of this sentence. And if I said to you a stat line at the end of the game, and I said 5 assists to 1 turnover, 4 steals, 0 points, and you had to think of a recent Razorback who would put up that stat line, what would you say?
That's a classic Devo in November stat line. One of those games where he's like protesting. He wouldn't have taken as many shots as DJ took in this game. He'd be like passing in transition when the defender's not going with him. He would have weird games like this where he would like kind of be like pouting, but also playing efficient, smart basketball. And you're like, I don't know, Devo, why don't you just do this more? Devo would love to do stuff like that.
Yeah, man, that's pretty funny. I knew that you would nail that right away. And as soon as I saw it and I was reading it, I was thinking, yeah, actually that's 100% right. Okay, let's get to some of these that we starred. This is funny because Kurt says something about this being a bad matchup for Big Z. Sometimes you can never tell. What I said was on paper that this was probably a bad matchup for Z because you're thinking about a long athletic team that runs the floor. You wonder how he can hold up. But what I said is actually, if you really think about it though, a team that's going to be trapping, kind of chaotic and stuff like that, it might actually play well for him because of his ability to pass and then his ability to protect the rim. But I did not say because of his ability to hit 6 threes in the game, buddy. I didn't see that coming, but I'll take it, man. And people were complaining about him, like in my Twitter comments, I'm sure some in the chat about, rebounding and he wasn't scoring in the post or whatever. The only issues that I really had were, one, the turnovers and the ones that he had were, not great there. And then just, there were a couple times. Yeah, there were a couple times where he was just beat down the floor after a made basket for a layup. You can't have that. And then there were 1 or 2 lapses there where I think he just got caught ball washing. The next thing you know is his man's behind him for a layup. So, hey, he's got things to work on. But at the end of the day, he hit more threes tonight than Arkansas has as a team in any of its 4 games against other competition so far. So I don't care tonight. They can look at that stuff in film and figure it out before Monday, as they should. But right now, he's the best 3-point shooter in history, and he looks awesome in a headband. So we're gonna take it.
And he tied his career total from before this because maybe he had hit 1 3. I guess now he's hit 7 threes on the year, and he only hit 6 of 19 all last year. So
yeah, exactly. Kazran says we had a higher 3-point percentage for the game than we did from 2. I think this is true because they were 42.9% from the field, and 43.5% from 3 on the game. That was ugly. I mean, they were, I think like 30% ish in the first half, and they were lucky to get there. By the end, 26 points in the first half. There was a lot of, not good. And then they figured it out. But how many times are we going to be able to say that Arkansas shoots better from 3 than it does from 2 in the game? Yeah. And yeah, man, like, I don't know, outscored by 12 in points in the paint. And so again, like you look at that and you're like, man, Troy came in here and did that and everything. But the 3-pointer is the great equalizer in basketball. Yeah. You know what that looks like? That looks like a Kentucky stat line to me, where they get beat in the paint because they just don't prioritize it, but they hit 10 threes, so it doesn't matter. So we can just we can live that life. You know what I'm seeing right now? Arkansas is versatile. They just win games in a variety of ways, man.
Well, they were really, really bad around the rim tonight.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's like a reason for it. I don't think there's a reason why Aduthiero let the ball slip out of his hands while he went up for a dunk. I don't know why. There's not a reason why Big Z just like hit the back of the rim on that wide open dunk attempt there. There's not a reason why Johnell Davis tried to posterize someone from like down the baseline.
Oh, that was nuts.
It would have been the dunk of the year. I have no idea if he was even close. It was a ballsy attempt. Like, again, like we could be frustrated by those things, and yeah, they definitely need to clean it up. But it didn't seem to me like something. It was like a sign of Arkansas's struggles around the rim. DJ Wagner missed everything on a layup attempt as well. Like, there were just a few things that happened. Like, it was just kind of a sloppy game that Arkansas was very rushed going to when they were driving towards the basket. But I don't know if there was necessarily like a cause for concern there.
Yeah, what I want to know is what constitutes a dunk attempt in the eyes of stat broadcast, because they have Arkansas as 3 of 3 on dunks, and you have to pop the rim,
hit the back of the rim on one.
I'll give it to him. Yeah, I guess Thiero probably didn't even get an attempt for whatever that was he tried to do. But so they had Arkansas for 3 of 3 on dunks, but 3 of 11 on layups. That's not good for a team that I think over the course of the year their strength will be getting to the rim more so than making threes. Yeah, so something to work on moving forward.
Attempts is probably the more concerning number there, right?
I would agree with that. And they wound up shooting a lot of, I know this is like the Cal thing, but they shot a lot of long twos, man. Boogie shot a handful of them. Billy Richmond loves him a long two.
Knox had a few that weren't great. His were more like in between floaters, some of which I weren't like. One of them I thought was a good attempt. It was a bad. Like he shot it poorly, but I thought it was a good idea. And some of those guys are capable. I mean, like Carter Knox, if he's going to be a legitimate scorer for Arkansas, is going to make mid-range shots. Boogie Fland, he's going to make 2-point shots. But tonight in this particular game, it was a little bit rough.
Yeah. That's a good time to talk about this. From Colin, he says, I think it's time to address the whole 9 scholarship limit with Cal. If he doesn't get at least 11 next year, I'm going to be disappointed. Well, yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that. And, respect the man for the choices that he makes. And in a perfect world, it makes sense because you don't want too many mouths to feed. You don't want a bunch of pissed off players at the end of the bench. I understand all that. And what it sounds to me like is he had those issues at Kentucky last year, and now he's trying to overcorrect. But we've said all along, man, like it opens up a lot of risk because you got to be healthy, which Arkansas is not. And so we saw how dicey things can get when you're super thin, especially if there's multiple injuries at one position, which they currently have. So they're going to have to figure that out. 2, you got to make sure that you hit on everybody. You can't have missed evaluations. You can't have guys who are busts, who aren't ready. So that's why it's so important when we look at this and we go, DJ Wagner scoreless in this game or whatever. No, like the dude has to be at least as good, but honestly better than he was at Kentucky last year, and going scoreless ain't it. Carter Knox, a 5-star McDonald's All-American, cannot go 0 for 5 and scoreless, especially when you have 2 other guys down. So if you look at it and you wonder, like, well, how the hell are they only scoring 65 points on Troy? It's because they got a couple guys injured and they got a couple guys who they need to be able to rely on who haven't hit their stride yet. 3 games in the season, plenty of time to figure it out. But yeah, I mean, it opens you up to some vulnerabilities. I do think that they will address it moving forward. I think that they will have a much more capable 10th man in that scholarship department. I think he's going to commit on Saturday. Hint, hint, wink, wink. And then what they've got to do is go out and get a developmental big man. I've pissed and moaned about it since the roster got put together, but they went and got out there. They're 9 dudes or whatever. That's fine if you want to do that. But like having a guy like Cash Chavis is that's not a bad insurance policy to have in the backcourt. You need a guy like that in the front court because there are no bodies for them to turn to. If one more guy goes down, what the hell are you going to do? Like you will have to play Thiero 40 minutes at the 5. And if he gets hurt or he fouls out, then what?
Billy Richmond, you're the 5 man here.
Exactly. So I get it. You're almost going to be like on eggshells, pins and needles the entire year every time a guy takes a hard fall on the floor because you're quite literally one, injury or something away from really being in a disadvantageous spot.
Yeah. I want to make my stance clear on this. I am much more offended by the 9 scholarships than I am the 9-man rotation.
Yes.
If that makes sense. Because I ultimately think like you don't need like 11 guys to really be playing, but you do have to have the options. You need to have the bodies because you need to mix and match in this time of year and find out who those 8 or 9 guys really are. Arkansas has no choice. The 9 guys, like that's going to be the 9-man rotation, the 9 scholar, you know what I mean? And so I definitely think that's something that they probably didn't go into this offseason planning to do. You know what I mean? It just kind of is. Once it started happening, they're like, okay, this is kind of just where we're at. But I definitely don't think this is going to be like a pillar of this program.
Yeah, no doubt. Stripus Wig says first halves of basketball games are dumb and I hate them. I do too right now. Caden Jower says, what's up with Arkansas and winning by 16? Maybe that's just their thing.
Yeah.
Sweet 16. Maybe that's a premonition, a sign of where this team is headed.
I like that.
There we go. This is a great question here by Cole. Like, is Big Z the next Reed Shepherd? People are talking after tonight. And, I think I would say, what do we think? Big Z gets at least 51% of the credit for Reed Shepherd's success at Kentucky last year. That's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other 49 goes to Cal, like just himself. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'd say, yeah, 51% and 0 for Reed Shepherd. Absolutely zilch for his, for the state of Kentucky.
Oh man, that was good. I hope some people out in Lexington heard that. Cody James says, hope this is the game we look back on and say, that's where we found our shot from deep. If Z comes out the next game without the headband, I'm going to be pissed. Don't mess with the juju. Yeah. He's got to keep the headband on for now.
Did you like the haircut as well?
I did. Yeah. No, I like that a lot.
By the way, Z, so I've noticed this. I remember in the Kansas game, he banked in a 3 and was still talking a lot after. He's a very animated character when he knocks down a 3.
He is, man.
Like he has a lot to say. He even pointed at Coach Cal. He said something to Coach Cal after hitting one of his 3s. He's really fun to watch when he gets it going. He's an animated guy.
I like that. I like it, man. It's you need some of that. There was some chirping in this game, which I didn't feel the way I did with you remember when Arkansas came back and beat UAB and like Taylor Green was in that guy's face and that they were doing a little bit of talking there and we were kind of like, I felt that way a little bit, but once they really got cooking, I felt better about it tonight.
And credit to Boogie Flan, man of character, did not lay that ball in as time expired.
Yeah.
Dude, JD Note would have pulled up from 3.
Yes.
He loved it. Must's teams always would dunk as time was expiring.
Was notorious for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Must would apologize to the other coach. I'm like, dude, you do this every game. Like your team, they know it's okay to do that. Like, don't try to play. But yeah, Devo half his career points came on the last play of the game.
Yeah, that's a fact, man.
Whether it was a game winner against Oral Roberts or a dunk on Auburn, like that's just he was a last 10 seconds performer.
Exactly. I hope this is the game we look back on and say this is where Arkansas found their shot from deep. It ain't gonna be 10 for 23 every night, but like we said, hopefully
different suspect.
For the most part, I mean, they're gonna have a clunker here or there, but hopefully for the most part, we're done with the 4 of 20s or whatever the heck it's been. Just find a fair middle ground. I think Arkansas will be just fine because they're really good at a lot of other things. Just be serviceable, man, from 3. Trey says, hey, Curtis, why does Arkansas suck in the first half? I don't know. Apparently where, I think here's the thing. Maybe we have some questions about John Calipari's preparation, his game planning, but he must be the master of adjustments, because the second halves, he's just been like a maestro out there,
Danny Watkins was saying that. He was like, when you have a Hall of Fame coach, you're typically going to be better in the second half. I was like, yeah. Big X's and O's guy, John Calipari.
That's exactly what I was thinking. So, Caden says, yeah, the amount of missed dunks were starting to get comical. I mean, they were funny. The broadcast team was laughing at them. So,
yeah,
that's for sure. Let's see. Seth says, that was a very concerning first half. I'm glad to see them claw their way to win by 16. Big Z is potentially a home court guru. 6 of 7 for 3 is wild. So, okay. That might be true because the 2 games where he's played poorly have both been on the road.
Yeah. He was good against Kansas for the most part.
Yeah. And then he kind of willed them. He had the big eruption late in the second half against Lipscomb. It was good tonight.
Huge three down the stretch in that game for sure.
We were watching him at TCU, like, good Lord, get him off the floor. And then Baylor was kind of the same thing. That might be it.
Dude,
just don't play him on the road.
He had a stretch there where like those suckers were not touching anything but net, nothing but nylon, as they say.
That's right.
He was in the zone, dude. And look, you can't really contest his shot. So it's like when he gets it going like that, we're all just at his mercy.
Exactly. Chris says Theo Davis and Fland all hit as well. Sometimes all it takes is the first one to go down. Yeah, I mean, you got to get the lid off. This was the fewest number of threes they missed in a row to start a game in the regular season. I think they missed their first 6 before they hit one. But yeah, I mean, Johnell Davis 1 of 4. Yeah. It needs to be a little bit better, whatever. 2 of 3 again from Boogie. He follows up a 3 for 5 against Baylor. So we tried to tell you that he'd be a guy who, probably shoot pretty decent in terms of volume and percentage. That's good. Theo 1 of 4. It was good to see him hit another one. Mm-hmm. Again, over 2 full seasons, he only hit 10 combined. And he's going to have that probably by the end of November or something. So
he was really 1 for 3 in this game because one of the ones he took was just an absolute heat check, where it was just like, I'm just gonna see. He had made a couple nice plays, and he was just like, we're up at this point. The game's decided. Yes. Let me take a stupid one. He's a 1 for 3 guy is what he is.
Yeah, he's feeling himself. Trevon was 0 for 1. I remember the one that he shot. It was I said to myself, that looks like the Trevon from the last couple years. Not thinking about it, and it just looked comfortable.
I was so happy with that attempt.
Yes.
And it was fairly early in the shot, but it was one of those that went inside and then came back out. And I was like, you know what? And Arkansas was needing a bucket at that point. I was like, that was a good attempt. I could live with that.
He was about to have a huge ass game. He really was. I believe awesome.
That. He really did.
Yeah. DJ Wagner 0 of 2 from 3.
One of them was really bad.
One of them was really bad. And one of them that he took was like, you have to take that shot. I think Manny Watkins even said it. It was they got into the paint, kicked it out to him. He's wide open, catch and shoot on the wing. You have to take that one, but you have to make that one.
Yeah.
The first one he took was the first possession of the game. It was like late shot clock, step back, contested, air ball. Yeah, we could do without those. He had to late in the clock.
Mm-hmm.
But the catch and shoots like that are the ones that you need to be able to knock down. Otherwise, people are just going to keep backing off of you, and you're only going to be able to drive into traffic and kind of turn it over. So,
well, and if you're not going to hit threes, you better be doing that 5 assists, 1 turnover stuff every night. You better be Jabril Durham at this point.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
And he has been good defensively. Let's just be honest. He's been very good defensively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. Carter Knox, 0 of 2 from 3. Man, 0 of 5. I know I said earlier, he's going to get going. He is, man. It's just it's frustrating that it hasn't happened just yet. Billy Richmond didn't attempt one, and then he has Z, man, 6 of 7 from 3 that's crazy work. Price Eubank says, how hurt do we think TB is? I mean, when it happened, I thought he tore his damn Achilles or something. Like, that was scary. It's hard to say. A lot of times those things you don't really even know until the next morning. You wake up and see how swollen and stiff it is and everything. But I do think it's a positive that he was back out on the bench before halftime, still with the team in the second half of the game. He wasn't, again, to my knowledge, and if you guys saw different, let me know. But I didn't see him on crutches or with a boot or anything like that. So that seems encouraging to me.
As someone who has sprained his ankle like 7 or 8 times throughout his life, that looked like a sprained ankle to me.
Yeah.
But I'm also not, I don't know anything, but just like whenever you land on it, the weird, I bet he heard a pop and freaked out. Because that's happened to me before. Like, when you sprain your ankle, it sounds like you didn't sprain your ankle.
Mm-hmm.
So I bet he probably freaked out a little bit. But then once he got up and was like walking on it, almost putting pressure on it, I'm like, okay, this seems like a sprained ankle. Which sprained ankles are literally like anywhere from 1 day to 3 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, exactly.
You got no idea.
Hayden says Josh Cohen would take this team to the next level. People were talking. He's low key. He's balling for USC though.
Is he?
Yeah, he's actually.
Y'all want someone who will score from the post? Josh Cohen will do that. But I don't know if Arkansas necessarily needs a guy that can score from the post.
Yeah, no kidding. This is from Jeff, and I saw a couple other people talking about the transition defense being really bad. He says they didn't like the lack of getting back down the court after a score and the inbounds defense under a goal. There were a handful of times that happened, and you got to I mean that's just something that you got to cut out of the situation there. You're going to give up some points in transition, but it can't be just getting beat down the floor like that. But at the end of the day, you outscored Troy 15-8 in fast break points. So I think every one of them that we saw was one of those situations where you're like, okay, Z, get your ass down the floor, buddy, or, whoever. So it stands out a little bit more.
It's actually kind of insane that they scored 49 points and were 38% from the floor, because we can all remember, like, count on three or four times where they got just gimme buckets, either off an inbound or just beating someone down the floor. There really wasn't many actual manufactured buckets out of Troy. It was crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Edward says that Jonas played, didn't see him in the second half. He played the last 4 minutes of the first half, and he was ruled out for the second. Don't think he was necessarily expected to play, but they didn't have a front court, so he had to give him a few minutes there at the end of the first half. A lot of X's in there. Defense looks good. As soon as we get Adu back to be a presence in the paint, we'll be even better. Our defense is tough. Yeah. This defense has been nasty, man. He adds just a completely different layer to what they could have going on there.
Are we sure that was a goaltend, the one they called on him?
It must have hit the backboard. That's the only way I could see it, because it seemed like it was still on its upward arc. It looks like Arkansas might have gotten away with one or two.
I was going to say, because I thought the other one was more of a goaltend. I think it was that maybe Z that hit that block, that one, where it was like kind of on the way up.
Yeah, I think so. And that's when he started chirping at somebody else. The only time I saw him talking tonight when he didn't hit a three was after that block.
Oh, yeah, he liked that.
So, yeah, he liked that a lot. So, let's see here. Jeff says Brazzil was looking like he was going to have a hell of a night and got hurt. Big Z said, don't worry, I got this. Hey, the man had to step up. And that's another thing about this. How many minutes did he play in the second half, Big Z? I wonder. 16 minutes in the second half
total, which kind of threw me off.
Yeah, he barely played, man, in the first half of the game, because Trevon started, and then he got a few minutes there, and then they had Adu in the rest of the half. So
because Z also got 2 quick fouls, I believe, in that first half.
Yeah, so he played 6 minutes in the first half, but 16 minutes for that big dude in the second half of a game that was kind of played up and down. That's encouraging. And like you said earlier, like, we were really harsh on these dudes for their conditioning in the preseason and even in the opener a little bit, but they're rounding into shape. So it's good.
That's the good thing. When you only play 8 guys, they get into shape pretty quickly.
Yeah. How about that? Sean Torrey, this is some of what we talked about. 7-2 and only 2 rebounds, has a lot of work to do. Looks lost on D. Like, why are we picking on the guy who won the game for you? I get it. And like, this is not new, I think, for anyone who's been watching Arkansas or watched him with Kentucky last year. Like, he's a very gifted offensive player. He has a unique skill set at his size. Absolutely needs to get more than 2 rebounds. The further away you get him from the rim, the less effective he is defensively. If he's able to hang out under the rim and get 5 blocks or however many he had, that's incredibly impactful. But yeah, if you have him trying to play transition defense or guard on the perimeter in the pick and roll, it's a vulnerability. Absolutely.
Right. I thought this was a weird day to say that he looked lost on D, because I thought today was more of those days where he got to hang back more near the goal, and he made a lot of plays, made a lot of huge plays around the rim. Really affected the game on that end. Again, we've said it a time and time. You let him stand there, he's not that bad.
Yeah, for sure. John Ham says Nelly's a better outside shooter than DJ. So if we're going to spot one up versus the other, it should be Nelly. I understand what you're saying, but they're not even running action for him or in his direction. I mean, that's Joseph Pinion shit. I could go stand in the corner and never get touches. It's completely ineffective. And it takes away from the strengths of your best player, your most talented player. If anything, Nelly should be on the ball more than he is. Yeah. Or you got to initiate and start that action towards him, or run something for him. And if you're going to do that, then get through the reversal so he gets a damn touch and gets the ball where he can create or get a shot off. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It's like you would want those catch and shoots for him, but creating those catch and shoot opportunities, those spot up opportunities, having him just stand in the corner and watch for 25 seconds ain't going to do it. And that's kind of my point with that, but I understand what you're saying for sure. Let's see. Yeah. More transition defense talk.
Also, shout out John Ham.
Yeah. Good to see you. St. Louis. What up? Sam Jones says Big Z is not a low post player. Cal is forcing a square peg into a round hole. See Karl Anthony Towns at Kentucky.
Again, weird night to pick this. He made 6 threes. I don't know if they were forcing him down on the block too much tonight. He made 6 threes. I don't like what?
Goodness gracious.
How many times did they post him up?
Who said he was a low post player? Like, was Cal trying to? Yeah, I mean, I saw him post up a couple times and kick out to guys for 3 or whatever.
I thought he made. I don't know. I don't think there was an issue with Z's usage tonight.
I don't think so either. Like, he spent a majority of his time on the perimeter, which is where his skill set is. And then I had other people yelling at me that he wasn't scoring in the post. What do you want from the kid?
No, yeah.
I mean, my God, man.
Airball. Karl Anthony Towns, who was on a team that went 38-1. It was a number 1 overall pick.
Oh, man.
God, he's going to do the same thing to Boogie that he did to John Wall.
Exactly.
Now, the airball free throw was messed up.
Who did that?
Adu Thero did it.
Okay, I missed that one.
It was down the stretch, and I think it was the front end of a 1-and-1 maybe or something. Just airballed it, and I just don't know how that happens.
I'm still laughing about this Big Z thing. Anyway, this is great from David. He says the national media is marveling at the job that Cal has done, despite not having a point guard or anyone that can shoot. You win the MVP award for the comments tonight. Yeah. That was fantastic. Yeah, just another game with your non-point guard who had 7 more assists in this one.
Your lottery pick point guard who is not a point guard.
That's crazy. He did have 4 turnovers in this game, but
he did. Although he had them early. He got those 4 turnovers out quick. And then he played pretty well down the stretch. What
does that bring him up to? Like 17 assists to 5 turnovers or something on the season. And yeah, that's crazy talk. And then the whole narrative about them, not having shooters, and they go out there and stroke 10 and 23. So and that's why you don't make these grand big picture declarations after 2 freaking games, because then things like this can happen.
Hey Curtis, you remember that time that everyone freaked out about that quote about Cal telling Big Z and Trevon not to shoot threes at practice, and then they would see clips of them shooting threes at practice, and they'd be like, "Wait a minute, I thought they weren't allowed to." And all the smart people like us had to say, "Hey guys, they didn't mean literally not shoot threes." He just says, "Hey, work on other parts of your game. We know you can shoot the ball. We know you've got some skills on the perimeter. We want you to develop some stuff." That's all that was, and that was a thing that people took and ran with. He shot 7 threes tonight. You really think they're like trying to hold him back from shooting threes? He shot 4 threes in an exhibition game against Kansas. I mean, or 5 threes against Kansas. Like, it's not really, that was never really a real narrative that actually was happening in the world. It was just kind of a thing that people talked about on Twitter for a day.
Yeah, that was something that Twitter and some people over in Kentucky media grabbed a hold of and wrote stories about out of context. But yeah, I mean, it was the same thing with Trevon, where he's just challenging him to be more on attack mode, play around the rim more. It's not taking away a really unique part of his game for sure. And even like after the Lipscomb game, he hit that big 3 against Lipscomb, and Cal was talking about it, and he was like, hey, if he's going to work in the post and block some shots and compete on the glass, yeah, man, shoot the 3. We love that. So, I wouldn't think too much about something he said in July or whenever that was. Goodness gracious. Witty, thanks. Super chat. Great job, Big Z. We'll let him know. Matter of fact, I'll Venmo that $2 to him. Just say, hey, thanks,
we love when you use your powers for good, Witty.
Oh man. All right. We're going to get out of here in a few minutes. We always do this thing where we're like, we might go for like a half hour or something and get out of here. But this was an interesting game.
It was.
In fairness, it was an interesting game. We wound up having more to talk about than I thought maybe we would. So
there's a lot of things that, like, if you had told me this morning that Arkansas was going to hit 10 threes and cover, I would have said, yeah, okay, if they're going to hit 10 threes, then yeah, they probably are going to cover. I wouldn't have saw it necessarily looking like that. I definitely wouldn't have thought Big Z would have hit it, but it just like, it was somewhat predictable, but also still didn't play out the way I thought. Right. But I come away with it feeling similarly about this team. They're pretty good, far away from what they need to be. They'll get there.
Yeah. Crowd, I've seen some text about that. Small. It was small. You know, I mean, I don't have anything else to say. Like they're trying to, I get it, the season tickets and hard to get there on a work night and all that stuff. And I know they're trying to do some things with like the buyback program and all that. It's just not working yet. Not every team in the country sells out these midweek, mid-major games. I think what it is not many teams in the country have an arena that seats nearly 20,000. So when there are several thousand empty seats, it just shows up more. Maybe in Bud than it does in some other arenas like Auburn. You can get like 12,000 people in there. So if they have a small crowd, it still looks, pretty decent and stuff. But it shouldn't offend anyone to say that was not good, and it just needs to be better, regardless of who Arkansas is playing, in my opinion. But I'm not gonna.
And I also think Bud Walton needs to do better about that. About if you have not a huge crowd, there should be nobody sitting in the upper deck. Like
yes,
you should be able, and they did it for those snow games. So I know they'll do it, but I think they should move those guys to the bottom section just to kind of fill it out a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Corey Smith says, what the heck's going on with Nelly Davis? I understand it takes a minute to get back healthy and in rhythm, but dang, ask his teammates who don't pass him the damn ball.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would say that. Do y'all really have an issue with like any of the shots that he's taken?
That's where I'm at.
Like, are you like really like? Because I think he's gotten some decent looks, just hasn't gotten some of them to fall. Which I'd like him to make more of them, but I haven't seen stuff out of Nelly that would like concern me moving forward.
Yeah, I just want him to be more involved. Like that's the main thing for me more than, and I think that kind of goes into some of the percentages. Like, 3 of 9, 1 of 4 tonight. Not ideal there, but it's just nothing is created organically for him. It's weird. And I don't really get it. He's just got to have the ball in his hands more, and he needs to start running some stuff for him. Whether or not Cal will do that, I don't know. BBN will say no. I say maybe they'll figure out that they have the best transfer in the country on their roster, and they will create scoring opportunities for him.
Yeah. Fair enough.
We missed anything?
Read Edwards' comment?
What's that?
Said you want to read Edwards' comment?
Well, I don't know where it's at yet. I moved away from our starred chat, so I'm just like scrolling through.
I didn't start it. He came to report that that Trey Biddy says that Pittman's staying no matter what.
Thank you, Edward. That's that's good to know. So, that's pretty good. Chris says most impressed with the 16 steals. Live ball turnovers reminded me of Musk's team last year. Not worried. Had a friend say Wagner doesn't help. I replied with 5 assists, 4 steals. Good show. Thank you for the compliment. And I mean, it's that's the thing about DJ, man, is he does a lot of really, really good things. Arkansas also needs him to score and be efficient in doing so, especially if they're going to play him 38 minutes a game or whatever. So he played 37 minutes in this game and didn't score a point. And so that's not to take away from anything that he did well, but if you're a starting 2 guard in the SEC, you got to score occasionally. So hopefully he figures that part of it out, because you're right. I mean, he's been impactful in pretty much every other way there. So
I would even settle for him just being the production that he had last year at Kentucky, like 9 points a game, inefficient shooting, but just kind of occasional pop-offs. I'll settle for that.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Sharon says, Curtis, can you grill Cal for not creating offense for Nelly? Thank you. It would have been a good time to do it if they lost, probably.
Yeah.
But it's like a time and place kind of thing. And I think right now, what do you think, Andrew? Like, we're probably to the point where it's ask one of the assistants in the pre-games about like, hey, do you think facilitating some things for Johnell Davis could get him going a little bit? Because obviously he's a very gifted scorer of the basketball, and just kind of see what the feedback is and what the thought process is. And then if you get, 3 or 4 more games down the road here and it's still just kind of weird and inconsistent and you take an L, then that's probably when it's time for that. You got to be strategic, I think, with these questions.
For sure. I also just wonder how much it's one of those things where it's like, hey, we know what Nelly is. We know what Nelly's capable of. We don't need to go out of our way to try and get Nelly going. Like, we know he's going to be fine and he's going to bring his offense. But to your point, I think that we've reached the point where that's almost counterproductive. It's like you just need to be running offense through your best players once the real season rolls around. But I wonder how much of that plays a factor where it's like, especially with Nelly coming back from an injury, I wonder if he almost is kind of content to play that role. But I almost do wish he were a little bit more selfish.
Yeah, for sure. Just a couple more here. Jeff says, Curtis and Andrew, as always, great analysis and takeaways on the game. Keep up the great work. Everyone hit that like button. Thank you for that. We appreciate that. And we try to find a good mix between analysis and takeaways and just having a little bit of fun and being engaging. And this is a good reminder. A couple things, actually. One, take advantage of some of the things that we got going on right now with our sponsors and our partners. You guys hear us talk about Rhoback all the time, and it's just a great deal that you need to take advantage of. So if you haven't done that yet, go to Rhoback.com, promo code HOGSBY20. You can get some really cool and comfortable gear for 20% off on your first purchase. And then secondly, Andrew and I are going to be doing the Pot of That Nature. Yeah, football's still playing tomorrow, where we're going to get into the weeds of this Arkansas-Texas football game and try to make it interesting. But the way to keep us motivated is to listen to it. So be on the lookout for that tomorrow. We would appreciate the support there as much as we do for basketball. There was one more. Where the hell did it go? Because I wanted to, from Kingsley. I wanted to address this real quick. He says, good on y'all for trying to get the names right. It's important. And a lot of media folks are dismissive and disrespectful with non-anglicized names. Yes. Yeah, we do try to get that right. And it's like, it was, and I didn't even cover that much baseball, but the Wagner thing was hard for me because you get used to saying something a certain way.
Yeah.
And it was, even last year it was Khalif battle, but no, it's Caliph. And it took a while to remember that. And so it's got to become second nature. Adu Thero will wind up getting that one right. But I also think there's a balance there too. Like some people get really bent out of shape about like, why are you calling Johnell Davis Nelly? And why are you calling Zvonimir Visic Big Z? Are you boys with them or whatever? And well, it's like, if a guy is referred to in a certain way, like if the U of A website says Johnell known as Nelly Davis, it means he probably wants you to call him Nelly. And then you also have to know
land.
Yeah. And you also have to know your audience a little bit too. And I think that's part of being just approachable and engaging. There's not a lot of Croatians walking around in Arkansas and in our fan base and our demographic. And a lot of people, it's a tongue twister, Zvonimir Visic, especially when you're trying to read it and pronounce it out and everything like that. What do people in the Arkansas fan base know him as? It's Z. It's Big Z. Cal calls him Z. We call him Z because it's more relatable to the common fan than saying Visic or whatever. So there is a fine line there. We try to make sure that we get it right. And I appreciate you saying that. Hey, Witty, thanks again. I don't know what he's referring to,
because I said I like when he uses his powers for good.
Oh, okay.
So he used them for good again. I like that.
Yeah, for sure. Finch says, at what point do we think they're going to finally click and play up to their potential? I'm hoping that they've got that figured out by about Thanksgiving Day. That would be nice.
I'm willing to give them longer than 3 games if that's okay. Especially because like I really did not expect this to be a game where like it all came together.
Right. Yeah.
I don't even think that's going to be Monday, even though they're going to be playing a really bad team and it might look that way.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree with that for sure. What should we expect out of Wagner this year? What are his strengths? What's clearly defense. I mean, he's really, really impactful on the defensive end of the floor. And I think you need to be able to expect about 10 points a night from him. But most of that's going to come from turning defense and offense and transition and getting downhill and finishing around the rim. It's just going to be the occasional 3, man. I mean, that's not going to be a big part of his game, but he can do a lot of things and he's shown a lot of things, but the scoring just needs to pick up a little bit. And John Neighbors is in here.
John Neighbors. He's been talking about his experience at Bud Walton Arena.
He's getting after it. Okay. Kim says, Curtis, what do you think about Noah? Pretty impressive. I was really irritated by that segment at halftime when Arkansas was once again shooting like 10%.
The timing of it was horrible.
I was getting ready to tweet out, like, are we sure that Noah is spitting out accurate data to these guys about their angles and the depth of their shot and the arc and everything? Maybe it's wrong, and that's why they're not making shots. But I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't, because then they were out there just shooting the cover off of it in the second half. but it's very cool. It's a very, very cool deal. And, you know, they need to continue to use it. So there you go. Okay. I think we're done here. You see anything else you want to address? Did we forget anything?
No, I don't think we forgot anything. And if we did, I believe you'll cover it in player grades.
That is a fact. Yeah, that's gonna be coming. We'll have player grades, little report card action out in the morning, early, and then mid morning / late morning. Andrew and I will have the Texas Arkansas preview show out and have some bold predictions, challenges and stuff. So be on the lookout for that. We're gonna get out of here, but man, really appreciate everybody for
watch that Texas Arkansas preview show. I know that y'all don't like football. We know y'all. We don't worry. I know we used to say that jokingly, but we know that y'all don't like football anymore.
Yeah, what's going on here? Yeah, we are not fair weather podcasters. Just for the record, we're gonna keep doing it. So, and honestly, we really did. We talked about this stuff before games. We're like, they're going to be playing some mid majors here, and we don't know what the interest is going to look like, win or lose, just because of that. Maybe we'll keep these post game shows to just a half hour or so. But the reason we wind up going for an hour is because we look and we see there's a crap ton of people on here watching, and then you guys are just all over it in the chat and engaging and asking good questions, and that's why it winds up going twice as long as we intended to. So thank you guys for that.
Want it to be. If it were that way with football, and we would do 3 pot of that nature pregame shows. Like we really will bend to your will. You have more power than I think you guys realize at times.
Yeah. You guys own us, man. You control us. It's crazy.
Or like clowns, just throw stuff at us and tell us what to do.
Oh, all right. Well, we're out of here, everybody. Hey, appreciate you guys as always. Get subscribed Inside Arkansas YouTube page if you're not already. Check out the website insidearkansas.com. For Andrew Ellis, it's been Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas, of course, and the Pod at the Palace. And we'll be back with Pod of the Nature tomorrow. It's a lot of pods going on, but we'll see you guys later. Have a good one.